You know, just when you thought a developer has given up on a game, they come out with a new update. Here's Exanima from Bare Metal Entertainment.
Now, I have ignored this game for quite a while now after getting it and going through as much as I can during the early stages of the game. Mainly because updates and development was so slow, I just didn't think the developers cared about it anymore. Especially since this was initially supposed to be a proof of concept for the game they really wanted to make called Sui Generis, I think. So I figured they probably just did this game just to see if they could do it, and then they went on to the game they really wanted to make. But lately they came up with a new update. And this update was actually, this isn't lately. This was all the way back in April, I believe. But this was an update that I was hoping they would make from the very beginning. Why? Because this time they included magic in this game. And magic was one of those things I was expecting them to get into eventually. Believe it or not, when this game was first released in early access, it didn't have a magic system, but I knew they were going to because they had a magic bar. So I spent a good long while wondering, okay, what kind of magic system would they put into a game like this? In this game is very different from any other hack and slash dungeon crawler RPG I've ever played. You see, the minute you start the game, and then you run around and you end up doing something like this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go over the controls here. This game is very heavily physics based. So the combat is very heavily physics based. You see, in other games like this, you would just rapidly click on an enemy while chucking down health potions, hoping that the enemy would run out of health before you run out of health potions. You don't get away with that in this game. In this one, the way you fight an opponent is you have to first go into combat mode, and then you hold down the mouse button to make your swings. And they've even added a few new moves. For one thing, there's a thrusting attack. They didn't have that when I first got this game. So now the spears have more of a meaning. Also, if you want to block, you have to stay in combat stance and just face your opponent as they're making their swing towards you. And when it comes to the armor and equipment, you're in for some serious shit when your armor has a coverage stat. See, in other hack and slash dungeon crawler RPGs, you would get armor, helmet, sword, and shield. Maybe some boots. In this game, you get shirt, shoes, pants, enough gambeson to make Shadowverse a creamus tunic, chainmail, chain leggings, chain coif, plate mail, plate greaves, plate gauntlet, plate pauldrons, plate elbow pads, plate knee pads maybe, as well as an arming cap under the chain coif, and a plate helmet. Or maybe even two halves of a plate helmet put together. The equipment is so detailed and intricate. Now, with all these different kinds of armor, it does change a few stats. For one thing, there's a lot of encumbrance, meaning that your character is going to move slow, but there is a positive trade-off. Armor protects you from slashing damage, and slashing damage causes lethal damage. Yeah, there's two different kinds of damages in this game. You get subdual damage and lethal damage. Subdual damage is when your yellow health bar goes dark, but it'll gradually refill once you're out of combat. Lethal damage is when your health bar goes into red, and it doesn't refill the red spot. Not unless you get a health potion, and those are very far and few in between, and even then it refills very slowly. And you might, if you're lucky, get one health potion per dungeon. So use them sparingly, and you can probably find them fairly easily enough, even though they're well hidden. Just look for the glowing blue jar. Blue jar. Blue as in mana bar, not health bar. I don't know. Who am I to question the coloring logic of bare metal entertainment? That said, some of the other features include a lot of world clutter. You can mess around with almost everything in this game. Various cups, boxes, plates, silverware on plates, jars, bottles. You name it, you could probably mess with it. You can even put boxes on enemies and mess up with how they're fighting. No helmet, no problem. It's very much like Skyrim in a way, with the way they handle their clutter system. And the other major feature this game has is the zombies. Nope, wait. Before you go, I understand your concern. Zombies are the most generic enemy any game can have, and it's woefully overdone, mainly because they're the easiest to program. I mean, what do zombies do? They shuffle towards the player character, and then they take a swipe at them. There's not too many ways you can fuck it up. But these zombies are not the viral zombies. They're more like necrotic zombies. Almost like Frankenstein zombies in a way. And their actions and their behavior actually varies by quite a lot. Some of them might attack you on sight. Others might need a moment to decide whether or not they hate you. Some will just take a passing look at you and then just carry on their business. Some may only attack you if you are running at them with a sword and then forget about you if you just run away from them afterwards. Some of them will run away if you hit them too hard. Some will only attack you if they catch you snooping around their place. And most important of all, according to the developer, they will remember you and your past behaviors around them. So, expect zombies to hold a grudge, I guess? Which leads me into the magic system that I've been so excited for. Now, first I have to explain my love-hate relationship with magic in fantasy RPGs. Part of my issue with magic in fantasy RPGs is that they are unimmersive and they take me out of the game sometimes. For example, if you've played Final Fantasy III, or Final Fantasy VI if you're numbering it correctly, you'll notice that the magic displayed in that game is very cartoony, which is okay because it's a very cartoony looking game. It's a vague representation of what you think the magic is doing. But once the game becomes less cartoony and shows some dark, gritty realism, the magic tends to not get that update and still carries over the cartoony look. You'll see this in a lot of MMO games, where they just throw a lot of particle effects and just be done with it, which is just as bad as just throwing numbers out of an enemy as soon as you hit them. It's unimmersive and it takes you right out of the game. The magic just doesn't look like it's there. It looks like it was just overlaid onto the game. Not to mention, magic in most RPG games are just treated as a ranged attack. I mean, what's the point of a fireball if I have a rocket launcher? Or a grenade? And for me, I think a game like an Exanima would be better than that. This is a game that kept its combat system and its environment grounded in mostly realism. So if they were to implement magic, I would expect them to keep it very dark and mysterious. So what would they do? Would they go with what they did in the demo in Sui Generis, where you just do a blast wave, which on the whole, at least it looks like it belongs in this kind of game.
But there's one they fear. In their tongue, he's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
Even the glowing light looks like it's actually there and not just something that's just overlaid like a particle effect. Maybe you'll get that teleportation spell that enhances your melee combat. But as it turns out, once I started unlocking spells in this newest update of Exanima, they actually went with the AI approach. Remember how I said that the zombies in this game might have different levels of aggression? Well, you can calm a zombie down in this game. Not only that, you can make them trust you and actually fight for you. Even befriend and recruit them. And once you learn how to possess them, the game gets practically broken. And now extra zombies are like extra lives for you, which is heavily needed in a game like this. This game is woefully unforgiving. And no, there are no quick saves, and the checkpoints are very few and far in between. Trust me, you're gonna want to use some zombies as cannon fodder in the later stages. Speaking of, let's go over my experiences in the game thus far. You'll start the game off with just a note telling you some vague instructions as you're waking up in what seems like an abandoned storage area. The only few things you can grab is a torch, maybe some debris to use as a weapon, and if you look hard enough, you'll find a barrel lid to use as a makeshift shield. And then you're unleashed into the world of Exanima. And as I continued exploring, I couldn't help but notice that this dungeon doesn't feel like any of the other dungeons of other dungeon crawlers I've played. Most dungeon crawlers tend to be fairly maze-like, if it were. But the dungeons in Exanima seems very deliberate and structured, where every room and hallway seems to have a direct purpose. And you could easily tell their purpose by just looking at the clutter around. For example, this room is definitely a barrel maker shop. This room is a wagon maker shop. Is this a storage area for lumber? How the fuck do they get the tree trunks down here? And there's definitely a wood shop. And what did they need all the lumber for? Oh, they're building ramparts to block off this one area. Okay, why are they blocking off this one area? And there's also a plant shop? Or a flower shop, or whatever the heck this shop is. I don't know. Most everything in this game is dead and abandoned. And when I say dead, there is nothing left. There's nothing but dust. They even described every jar you find in this game as having its contents long evaporated into dust long ago. And yet, every room in this game seems to tell a story, although not always a pleasant story. I mean, I know the first level has its own prison cells with the one zombie jail guard, but what the fuck is this other prison cell doing here? There's like this large group of cages right next to what looks like a Frankenstein lab. You know what? I'll just hold off on the spoilers for this one. We'll have to wait till part 2 before I start going into extreme spoilers. Needless to say, the other things I found in this environment are hospital bedrooms and some prosthetic limbs and crutches that are now being used as weapons by the zombies. Yeah, I should get into the zombies and their place in this area. You see, not only do the zombies have differing behaviors, but they also have differing outfits, clothing, and armaments. And they're armed in just what you would expect them to be armed with given their environment. I mean, the one guy trying to kill me with a hacksaw? Yeah, he came from the woodshop area. The guys with the crutches? Yeah, they were in the hospital area. Every now and then you might see a zombie guard that's equipped with an actual battle axe and maybe wearing some gambeson and a helmet. And then there are these, what I would like to call boss zombies, where they are well armed and well equipped with a chainmail and a sword. And they're in a wide open area, almost arena-like if it were. The game also uses its clutter system to its advantage, where if you dig in a few areas, you might be able to uncover some secret items. But one thing I can't stress enough is just how lived in and how immersive most of these rooms are. They look like they're long abandoned, but they feel like they have once had life. It's almost like you're looking at an old family photo of a person who used to live here. And this carries on to level 2 of the dungeon, where things feel a bit more institutionalized. This time, not only are you seeing bedrooms with their own washrooms, you're also seeing public bathrooms, a barracks, a fucking classrooms, and hey, I guess that must be the headmaster. Gotta go! There's even a courthouse with what looks like an executioner zombie.
By the divine authority of the Templar, you are hereby exiled to the forsaken shores of Reklast. You have transgressed against God and consorted with sin. Find your redemption, exile, or die in the attempt.
There's even a mess hall complete with a kitchen and a food storage area. And you'll even find a tavern. And in the back of the tavern, you'll see a place where people are playing dice. Well, used to play dice. You can tell because they already have the dice game set up before this place got abandoned. And there's even a back room where they must have crushed the grapes into wine. And somewhere around the center of the map, you'll find a training area for melee combat and even range combat. Hey, Bare Metal, when are we going to have ranged weapons in this game? You do have the range stats up and running, don't you? And then there's the morgue, which leads into the crypt, which is more or less one of the added levels since I've first started playing this game. And the crypts are basically a cave with a bunch of tombs. Oh yeah, and there are skeletons, and I'll get to the skeletons in a sec. Level 3 is where things start to look a bit more higher class. There's a clear residential area, and there's also some places where luxury items are being made, like a glass blower's shop, a seamstress shop, where they're making all kinds of armor and gambeson, and even carpets. There's also a pottery shop, and if you look further to the back, there's even paints where the pots are being painted. I mean, there's a lot of attention to detail in this game. And hey, look at this, a treasure chest. Oh, I didn't know what I was expecting. Yeah, when you open up boxes and treasure chests in this game, just be ready to accept the fact that they're likely going to have whatever it is that their environment dictates. But I'm pretty sure level 3 is where all the high class nobility and merchants are. I could tell because somebody here was having their picture taken. Well, picture painted. And there's a lot more notes as to the goings on in this environment, which I'll get to in a later video. But going to the eastern side of the dungeon, there's... Hey, what the fuck is going on here? Holy shit. Is there infighting among the zombies? Now, granted, infighting among zombies isn't uncommon in this game, but it's usually orchestrated by me. Even when I first got this game, one of my favorite ways of getting rid of zombies is to get two of them trying to hack away at me at this door while they're cluttered close together in the hopes that some of them might accidentally hit one another and then they go into a grudge match. But I didn't cause this one. Upon further investigation, you learn that the zombie that's killing every other zombie is very distinctly dressed and well armed and well armored. Probably another boss zombie. And if you befriend her using your charm spells, you could get a better look at her and you'll notice that she's not nearly as decayed as the other zombies. Was this another adventurer? Are there other people down here? Other human beings? And could some of them still be alive? Well, this shocking revelation is kind of hampered by one of the later additions to the update. Darren. Yeah, if it weren't for Darren, this revelation would have had more of an impact on me. Darren is one of the only other human beings you'll ever find in this game. Probably the only human being you'll find in this game. And you find him in the first level. And you could have him join you. And you can talk to him and tell him to either wait or follow you. And unlike zombies you've charmed, you have to ask him permission to look into his inventory. Which is bothersome. Although it's an interesting aspect to have party members in this game, it's one of those things that almost breaks the immersion for me. You see, this game I kind of see more as an immersive sim than a hack and slash dungeon crawler RPG. I see it as having more in common with games like System Shock, especially since you can use stealth as an option in this game. I can bypass most of the zombies in this game by just hiding from them as they're rounding a corner and then just walking past them, or waiting for them to walk into a room that's a dead end and then just closing the door on them, since zombies don't know how to open doors. And it's a very legit style of play. And the sheer fact that most of the lore you don't learn from other people but just from various notes and books that are left behind kind of adds to the loneliness and isolation. In a sense, this is more of a survival horror game than an actual dungeon crawler RPG. And of course, by having Darren follow you around, you just kind of ruin the loneliness and isolation of it all. But Darren's an optional character that you can bring along anyways. Oh, half the time you'll probably miss him if you're avoiding zombies. But getting back to the level 3 of the dungeon, once you progress north, you'll start encountering skeletons. And if that were enough, just up ahead, you find the gateway. And you see it coming too, after all. Look at the environment. Doesn't this look like the entrance to something? You see a front desk, you see offices, you see storage area, as if this was a holding place for when objects are traded away. So could there be a front gate here? And the front gate is...
It's a portal.
No, I'll accept giving away this spoiler, if only because this is something you'll see in the trailer. So this leaves another question. Where does this portal lead? And what is it doing here? Does this go to another dimension? Does this go to a far-off land? Is this why there's so much manufacturing here? Are people just manufacturing stuff and then trading with a far-off land? There was also a training area and seemingly a garrison here. Could there be a group of invaders coming from this portal? Hell, there was a map in one room that almost looked like a battle plan. I guess there's only one way to find out. And once you step beyond the portal, you're in an extremely exotic location. Instead of the environment looking long abandoned, it just looks temporarily dormant. As if the area was just closed for the weekend, or as if you walked into a place that's during its off hours. I mean, the place still looks empty, but it looks empty for a different reason. And there's a lot of dim lighting, and all the clutter in this environment is very ornate. There appears to be a lot of bronze in this area, and it almost seemingly has this Middle Eastern feel to it. And of course there are skeletons. Yeah, let me tell you, the skeletons are bastards in this game. Unlike the zombies, the skeletons aren't really all that clumsy. They can actually fight really well. And they're resistant to bladed weapons. So you're going to want to use maces against them. Needless to say, you should be good enough with the combat system in this game that the skeletons shouldn't be that much of a problem. In fact, this level should be a piece of cake. I mean, you should be able to get through it fairly easily if you just...
What was that?